I think we all more or less can agree that media definitely shapes perceptions and it definitely sets public agendas. When I speak I come from Egypt, which is a predominantly Arab country, and our coverage, let's say for example, towards a war, any war, the Iraqi war, I'm lucky enough to be able to see both sides of the coverage and see how it plays out. So on one side you always have the gripping, made-for-TV story, you know, the brave US soldiers who are saving the oppressed Iraqis. And then on the other side you always have the poor, oppressed Iraqis. This is our media, the dead bodies, the being captured. And you see these two sides and how completely bipolar opposites of the same events. And it gives you idea, and then how that reflects onto the public, and you see how this actually affects their perceptions. The frames that are used, the terms, the quotes, even who you omit, who you talk to, who you don't talk to, all these things play into how the public perceives the same events, and that's if you don't say that there's already an agenda. If there isn't an agenda and the journalist is genuinely trying to cover what's happening, you still have obstacles such as the socio-political environment, economic, professional fears of will their editors publish this or not, historical tensions, prejudice, all the different background that's accumulated before you even start writing. All these things play into how a reporter covers it. And what I work at in English, I write in English, and I'm the only Egyptian on the team, even though we write about Egypt. And there's usually three main issues I find when I come to write. The first thing is when I see my fellow reporters who write. The first thing is because of time, because the world is so fast-paced now, 24/7, you have to put the news all the time. There's less space for international news, there's less space to have a reporter on the scene who's actually lived in the country and seen what it's like, that there's no time anymore to put the nuance and the context, the background, all the historical and political information that's necessary for the reader to actually understand where the story fits on a larger scale. It's usually, okay, this is the event, let's just put it terrorist sympathizer, and khalas, this is it, and let's not consider what's going on beforehand. Language is definitely the second thing. The terms that are used, I think we definitely mentioned, shall we say terrorist, shall we say martyr, shall we say occupier. All these terms and all the connotations that they carry takes a lot of, it's hard to justify where shall we use these terms, where not, especially when you consider who your audience is. What else? The third thing, majority minority. I've always, if I write in Arabic press versus if I'm writing to English press, you always consider the power of the majority over the minority, the different power structure, how that affects when you write about minorities. And this is the same whether it's in Egypt and I'm writing about Coptic Christians, and it will be the same whether, let's say, in America they're writing about the Muslim minority. One argument which I had heard, which was made me really think. We were talking about when it was the cartoons, and it was talking about how you should consider the cartoon crisis in Denmark. If you consider the debate within the larger context of unequal power, then it's not the act of a publication afflicting the comfortable, but a provocation to a minority faith lacking the political and cultural power to fight back. So whether or not we agree, it's the argument, it's big, but that's one consideration to take place. It's very interesting you mentioned the Gallup study, because I just attended in Egypt a couple of days ago with Muhammad Yunus, the study Religious Perception in America. And one of the most interesting findings I found, he quoted that in American media, they found that the least prejudiced Americans towards Muslims were the most ignorant. The ones who had absolutely no knowledge of the religion, so they didn't even know what the Quran was or anything, were the least prejudiced because they hadn't been exposed to Islam in the media, and since Islam in the media is usually negative, so they had less prejudice. So it shows you kind of the power of the media. And also Media Tenor they did a study and they talked about who speaks for the religion in the media. And they said that 60% of those who speak about Islam in the media are the militants, the craziest, the horrible people, versus when they compared it to Christianity, and 90% of them were religious leaders. And then, Dr. Christian Colmer, he analyzed and he said, why some of the reasons he gave for this coverage, and I thought they were just good to mention. That bad news is good news for media. All if it bleeds, it leads. Video footage is usually of the horrible events, and that gives it's a vicious circle. So let's say he filmed a terrorist attack, so this is the next terrorist attacks. Media doesn't have easy contact to the real religious leaders, because if they're real religious leaders and they don't really want to, they're not promoting their own agenda on TV, they're not easy to reach. Religious leaders, except the Pope, are not usually celebrities, they're not really fun or sexy to interview. And that the media wants the exceptional, the sensational, the thing that's going to make everyone go, ooh, this is cool. So I've gone on long enough, but I just wanted to mention last point about the internet, because I think this was really important. It was mentioned briefly in the morning about whether the internet actually helps, gives voice to terrorists and to I wanted to show you this video, but unfortunately there's no speakers here, so I recommend you watch it because it's only a 2-minute video, and it's by a columnist. Her name is Mona Tahawi, and she was talking about how this video talks about how I-Muslims, she calls I-Muslims, and the argument here, which I believe in, is that the internet definitely didn't give you this homogenous, the world press. It gives the crazy people a platform to promote their views, to recruit more people who fulfill their agenda. We had the Nigerian, what was the case? Recently you had cases, oh my God, Al-Qaeda is recruiting through their website and they're getting all these people. It happens, obviously. But at the same time, a Pew study was just released, the Research Center, Bardo last week, and it was talking about how 1/3 of Americans now get all their information from the internet. And that Twitter and Facebook, people actually reading news which is recommended by their friends, and how all these social networks have become a huge part of where we get our information. Taban, it's hard, the internet, it has everything. You will find all the crazies who are promoting their agendas, but you'll also find that the internet gives, it promotes also dialogue. You'll also find a lot of people, the example Mona gives here is of Iranians who were in solidarity with someone who was arrested, who the government said he was trying to run away by dressing up as a woman. They actually dressed up in headscarves, and the whole campaign went through Facebook, it went viral. But you don't hear about this because it's the happy Muslims, who she calls. The happy Muslims confuse you. We don't want the happy Muslims, we want the frowning evil ones and the black women, kind of like me. So definitely internet is, it does give a platform to people who have bad agendas, but it also gives voice to a lot of people who would find it hard to give their voice out otherwise. And last thing, media, for me, I've always felt that anyone, if you use media, citizens, because citizen journalism obviously has become, it's new now, everyone, especially in countries like mine where freedom of expression isn't necessarily given, tweets, YouTube, Facebook, there's how we find a lot of information. So anyone who uses the media, whether it's a TV show where you're watched by millions or you're tweeting and you're only read by your friends, you shape society. You help promote whatever you want to promote. So it's up to us. How do you want to shape the society? Do you want to brutalize it, vulgarize it, or you want to lift it up to a higher level? So it's up to us, and we're all very powerful. Just by a click of a button, you can do anything. It's amazing. So it's up to us to decide how to do it. Thank you.